Hello, I'm Michael Horvath. Strava is tapping into something that's part of who we are. Celebration of what can our bodies do. There are over 100 million people on Strava, about 1 to 2 million new people a month. You as the entrepreneur, the team you build, and then the investors you bring on, they have to work in conjunction with each other.
Could it be possible to create a Strava right now without raising money?
People are always struggling. If they're always fighting, you're not going to get the best of them. So balance is one of our core values at Strava.
Incredible how this company grew, had several lives.
Be yourself and count on that the people who are going to matter to you will find you a wonderful human being just the way you are. Be yourself.
I love this. Thank you. Nous sommes la moyenne des personnes que nous fréquentons. Je suis Matthieu Stefani, entrepreneur récidiviste et cofondateur de Cosa Vostra, agence de conseil tech et créative. Avec Génération Do It Yourself, je vous propose de rencontrer ensemble des entrepreneurs, sportifs ou artistes qui vont littéralement faire exploser notre moyenne. Here we go. Très bien. You speak French, actually?
Un peu.
Un peu? C'est vrai?
It's better if I'm drinking some wine,
Okay.
I have to say. But no, when I was growing up, in school, they started teaching language in the fourth grade. Grade. So you're maybe 10 years old.
Okay.
But you don't get to choose. So I was in the year that got Spanish. My brother was 1 year older. He got French.
No way.
French, Spanish. So I didn't get any French until I went until my senior year in high school. Then in college, I could take some French. So it was not so much French. But no, I come to Paris. I try to speak a little. I tell the guys, I speak French, and they speak French to me, and I'm like, I can understand, but I can't really respond. I can't.
Yeah,
so I understand much more than I can say, and that's
It's kind of the same for me in Italian or Portuguese. I kind of do the trick, but then I just kind of understand.
Yeah, you get into it, and then you can't complete the.
Eu falo português. Sim, tudo bom.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
that sounds really good.
So yeah, no, but it's very interesting. How comes you got to French, Spanish? Maybe you could have Hungarian or
Yeah.
I mean, and even French compared to Spanish. I mean, my dad might hate me to say that, but I mean, French is useless compared to Spanish.
It seems that way today, but back in, so I'm 56, and so I was growing up in the 70s, and French was still such the language of the Western world. It was like you learning French was a part of maybe call it if you're going to get educated, you're going to learn French. And
that's actually why my father, would be mad, because 50 years ago, that was the way, actually.
Yeah. It was like close to the English was much more becoming the international language, but French had been the international language. And so I was a little disappointed to not be in the year that learned French. I got Spanish, but it's a much more useful language because there's so many places in the world, especially in South America. You can travel, get very far with your Spanish. But now I don't speak that much of either one. You have to keep practicing. I grew up in my family. My mother came from Sweden, my father from Hungary, and we spoke Swedish for the first 5 years of my life.
So I wasn't far from Hungarian.
No, I thought maybe you were.
No, I didn't know.
Okay,
actually,
yeah.
Okay.
He came to the U.S. after World War II, and met my mother. Can tell that story. It's very bizarre, but and we lived in Sweden for a few years when I was young, and we spoke Swedish in the home. And my dad learned Swedish and spoke Swedish with a very thick Hungarian accent, and so I learned English when I moved to the U.S. when I was 5 years old. And so.
You still have Swedish?
Yeah, I can still speak Swedish.
Okay.
I lost it for a while. I didn't use it, and then it came back when I was a teenager. I started to go to Sweden more often and started to use it again, and then it all came back. It was in my head somewhere. It was in the back corner.
Yeah.
So,
just for the fun fact also, I think for the English listeners, who are not used to Génération Do It Yourself, I'm happy to have you here, actually. But my father and his generation, some of them, they were really into it. They believed that French could kind of win, become, or you say it was, but become the international language. Like it was still when I was young, I could hear him saying, it's not done yet,
Yeah.
And now when I listen to the Olympics or stuff, at the Olympics, French is still an official language.
Is that right?
Yeah. So when you got Olympics everywhere in the world, in China, in Japan, and you will hear all of the announcements are made in the local language, English and French. You're like, why is that? I mean, what the fuck? What happens? It's weird, but so it's the kind of probably at the UN you get some institutions where we kept some kind of trophies, but I don't know for how long it's going to last. Sorry about that. Sweden, what a great country, no?
It's an interesting place. I mean, right now it's maybe changing some. I mean, I think it has been part of my life, going to Sweden, spending time there. My mother now moved back in 2006. I have 3 sisters. They're older, and they live there. It's all just my brother and me who live in the States.
Okay.
But Sweden is this. It's a very interesting kind of way to think about how the society organizes and how we built Strava. There's some parallels there between thinking about how you take care of the team and how you take care of the society. It's somewhat similar. But my thinking was the following, which is if we take care of the people on the team, meaning we give them good opportunity, we pay well, we make sure they have time for their families, time for themselves, we'll get the best outcomes, best work. And I think Sweden that's the model of the society, is that you need to create the spaces. If people are always struggling to have the spaces to take care of the family, take care of life, and take care of work, take care of themselves, that if they're always fighting for the balance between all those, you're not going to get the best of them. So balance is one of our core values at Strava.
And actually, Strava is Swedish. It's strive, isn't it?
To strive.
To strive. So it's not the only Swedish inspiration you have. The roots, if I understand well, are kind of Swedish somehow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Before we go into all of that, may I ask you to? Are you on the plane mode? You say mode avion plane? Yeah,
yes,
you are.
Yeah,
I could hear some. Can you hear maybe sometimes some beep 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 beep? Okay, we're good. So may I ask you, dear Michael, to introduce you?
Yes. Hello, I'm Michael Horvath. I live in the United States. I live in San Francisco, and I'm the father of 4 children. They're in their 20s. I grew up in the Northeast, in the Boston area, a small city outside of Boston. And
what's it called?
Hingham, Massachusetts.
I'll just check.
And I could talk in a Boston accent, but that's where I learned English listening to TV, listening to the television when I was 5-6 years old, and the channels I was watching didn't have local people talking, so I learned English without the Boston accent.
Okay.
But that's where I grew up. But yeah, that's and then I'm 56 years old. So give you some sense of I've seen
5-6.
5-6. I've seen now parts of 6 different decades, and I think that's also interesting part. I'm thinking about what it's going to feel like when I'm in the middle of the 21st century, because I came from the middle of the 20th century. So fan of history, fan of think when I see things, I think about what was here before. History is a good teacher, a good lesson. You can learn a lot of lessons from it, but as I look around, for example, traveling in Europe, you see things that are so old compared to what you have in the US. Nothing we have today is as old as what you see just everywhere you walk around here in Paris. So
it's true.
Yeah.
And it's quite weird because we have the thing that we keep those things. I mean, in some cities, obviously not all of them, and probably not in the Western US, but when you go to I don't know, Vegas, I mean, they just build, destroy, build, destroy. You move on, and you're like, the business plan is done. It's done. It was 18 years. We've done our 18 years. So let's do a new building. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It still looks nice. I mean, it was a Bellagio. It was. It had a history. No, it's done.
Done. Build a new one.
I don't know if will they someday destroy the Bellagio? You think? I don't know.
I was in Vegas last fall, and I can tell you that the hotels that are the new hotels, they look amazing and beautiful, and that makes the old ones look very bad.
Crap.
So I think they have to at some point say no one's going to want to stay there when they see the new ones. They build them taller, shinier, all sorts of lights. They really make them exciting to look at, and then so the old ones look. Maybe they become antique or something. They're like, oh, that's quaint. Let's stay at the Bellagio. But Vegas it's not my cup of tea in general. But so
once you've been there a few times, I believe it's exciting for the first time, first time. But I understand it's not the thing where you want to go. Yeah, we have some interferences, but I think it's good.
Is it okay?
Yeah, I think. What I want to talk in this couple of hours we have together, if you accept, is one thing. I mean, we're going to talk obviously about Strava a lot, and I'm quite amazed of this story, which is kind of a roller coaster, right? I mean, to me, Strava was kind of a great things I didn't use for long. I told you before, but it was kind of all of the guys around me, girls that are more into biking, and I'm quite a lot into all of these, but I was okay with Runkeeper, right? I was like kind of, I've been using it since 2009, and I had my activities and my friends, and I was like, it's good. But slowly but surely, I would see each of them going to Strava and telling me, come to Strava. I was saying, no, what the fuck? I don't want to go to Strava. I'm good, I'm good where I am, right? And actually, I thought you had to pay to go on Strava, and I don't give money to anyone. I don't spend money, right? And
we'll see if we can change that by the end of this talk.
That, And so I was good on Runkeeper, but the view of Strava I had was like, it's huge thing, like it's going well, and for all the time. And when I've prepared this episode and listened to you on other podcasts and read articles, I saw it was kind of a tough way. My God, and I really want to talk about that, because I think the roots of Strava are kind of sane, right? Can you say that? Very. It seems there are a lot of good things that will probably make something you want to do a 100-year brand, or maybe more, something to last.
Yes. Yeah.
And I really want to understand that. I think actually probably you're kind of sorry to say that I'm not that young, but you're kind of an old CEO. You're about to, or you've already given your CEO title back, or
no? We're looking for the successor, the next CEO for Strava. So
can he be French?
The person can be live anywhere. But so we're doing a search now, and that's interesting also to be running the company, knowing that I'll be handing the baton to the next person. So I think it's interesting to see that you've started this company. I mean. Quite late, with a lot of histories, and you're still there, and it's still a leader. And I think once again it has great roots. And some funds, hedge funds or VCs, gave you a great confidence recently. Is it Andreessen Horowitz or no? It's Sequoia and TCV.
Yeah, and TCV. Sequoia is huge, and on what's F stage, or it was
Series F.
Series F. Yeah. They came in. So
it was in December of 2020. Yeah.
So it's a big change and big trust. So all of that, obviously, how you lived through that, obviously also, how you also live because we were talking about running, Ironman. You had a few full Ironman long time ago, half Ironman last year. You said I did, but probably I was more chill. And a marathon a few days ago.
Yes.
We here right after. So congratulations. What was your? Were you chasing a time?
No. I hadn't run a marathon in 13 years, so I wanted to see if I could still do it.
Yeah.
And maybe this is like a continuation of like what I'm realizing is that there's so many things that I used to do that I don't do anymore, and I want to go back and see which of those things are the ones I actually just still want in my life. Like running was something I've moved away from over the last 3 or 4 years. I had so much pain in my Achilles tendon, and it started during the pandemic, the start of the pandemic, and I couldn't figure out why. Now I finally got some help with a physical therapist, and it's amazing. You know, it's starting to come back. Like my strength in my legs, my feet. I had started, you know, because of the pain, I was compensating in a way that made it made the pain worse. But anyway, now I'm running again. I wanted to see if I could run a marathon. So Paris was available. I could run. I could get into the Paris Marathon, and seeing a city by running through it is an amazing experience. So you know, I've been to Paris many times, but had never really experienced from one side to the other and back again, like the marathon course goes. So it was so exciting. So I was just trying to finish the race. I kind of wanted to go under 4 hours. I did 4 hours and 20 minutes.
Okay.
But I want to do now that I did this, I want to do the next one. You know, now I'm back, you know, after 13 years, Michael is back. He's going to run some more marathons in his life.
Congrats. The 4 hours is a kind of something that. Yeah. And
it's, if you think about it, I was out on the course, that's a long time to be doing anything. It doesn't matter if you're going slow, fast, right? 4 hours, 20 minutes. So I think if I can do some more training, I can drop the time and actually feel better, even better after it. But this time it worked well. Did some light running this morning. Everything still works. It's still connected. So
we were connected. I was listening to you.
You were listening to me?
This morning while running. You know what? It puts some pressure on me sometimes. Strava, I think it's a good pressure. I want to know how is it for you, but the more kind of my community grows on Strava, the more I'm kind of I'm not chasing times. I don't want to go fast. I think I got over it a couple of years ago, but I want to be regular, right? And how is it when you're for Mark and yourself? I mean, do you have a kind of a pressure of like, I'm the CEO of Strava, I have to use it every now and then? Or
it's funny. I never feel the pressure from Mark. So you mentioned Mark Gainey.
Yep.
He and I have been best friends since we were in our teenage years. We met in college. I think we both come at this. We're pretty competitive people, but when we log our workouts on Strava, when we post an activity, I'm thinking about all the people who are connected to me, who probably are just happy to see that I'm doing something.
Extra.
It's so not to my knowledge. I never think about it as like, oh, this has to be a fast time. Or sometimes I'm proud of what I've done. Maybe it's the marathon, for example. I'm excited to post this, and I get a lot of kudos. I get a lot of comments, and that's exciting. But I never feel about the pressure of the time.
No, it's true.
But we hear that a lot. You know, that's the thing. Strava did start with a fairly competitive element to how the experience compared to other ways to track a workout. Strava does have this competitive image, and maybe it's we're trying to really broaden and shake that image a bit. You know, and now after 13 years, you know, it's we want everyone to feel comfortable, and no matter how fast or slow or whatever you do to be active, Strava's for you. And that's changing that image is hard when people think, oh, I'm not good enough to be on Strava, but we're working at it.
It's true. I think it's we call it élément de langage in French. It's like the thing you have for politics. You know, the common say is that you know, kind of you have to do it faster, and I have received a guest here, a guy called Matthieu Blanchard. You heard about him? He was number 2 at UTMB.
UTMB,
and he really changed that in my mind. I mean, this morning I went out for like 6.5 kilometers, which I would have never done before him. Like 3 months ago, before, I would never go out for under 10 or 12 kilometers because I was thinking it's like useless. Like, I mean, why should I put my sneakers on and run? I mean, do you say sneakers for running shoes?
Yeah, you could say sneakers. Yeah,
and for for under 6, I mean, it's and now I feel just so there's no pressure. It's
no
just
pressure.
Go out, do your thing. Yeah, so
yeah. And maybe it's this marathon is interesting. I trained low mileage. My longest week was maybe just over 30 miles. So 50 kilometers was my longest week.
Okay.
Yeah, which is for marathon training is low.
You didn't do any 30 kilometers, 35?
I did one 30-kilometer run.
Okay.
That was my longest run, was 30K before doing the marathon. That was 2 weeks ago. And I did that was because I don't think I can do more without feeling injured, but without feeling like I'm breaking down my body. But at no point in the race was the problem that I hadn't enough mileage. It was other things. I'm still getting used to going that long, and I think with more time, I can get that without having to do the longer and longer runs. So the idea of lower mileage, save your body, recover after each run. You have to have some base conditioning, of course, but I think it's like the idea that you have to go really hard. If you're going for the fast times, you probably do. But for me, I'm just trying to have a good day. I'm trying to enjoy being out there and enjoy the experience, right? So that's a different. You don't need the mileage.
The main idea is to go out every day or
every day.
Almost, but you don't have to go 50K a week, right? What I've heard actually is 13 years, that's the age of Strava, and that was your last marathon. So you didn't run a marathon since you started Strava?
That's true. Yeah. This is the first marathon that I've posted to Strava. Even though in 2009 I did run a marathon, we had started Strava, but you couldn't track a run back then. It was only for cycling, and so when I ran the marathon in 2009, I didn't bother with GPS and didn't have a watch on my wrist, or we didn't have a mobile app on our phones. Strava hadn't built a mobile app yet, so I didn't track that run. It's just it's interesting to think about now. Here in 2023 is the first time that I've tracked a marathon, though I've run many in my life. I've run maybe 10 marathons in my life. First time that it's now on Strava.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Before we go into the Strava adventure, right? Can you just explain me how you got there with Mark? And what the story before, in between those 5 years when you arrived in the US? And well, it's a long time, but you had a previous company, if I understand well,
right?
But prior to that,
it's so Mark and I met in 1986. I had started college 2 years before he did, so I am a couple of years older than him, and we met on the crew team, rowing, the rowing team, in university. Neither of us had rowed before.
Which university was it?
At Harvard College. Harvard. Yeah. He's a very good athlete. He had been recruited to run cross country.
Sorry, how did you end up at Harvard College, coming from Sweden? And were your parents very pushy, or was it? I mean,
I don't even remember my parents really. They just said, education is important. You should pay attention in school, but it was never pressure, and it was. I think times were different. What I remember about the whole process of so I went to high school in Hingham, Massachusetts, the town I grew up in, Hingham.
Harvard was the college, right?
But I'd never been to visit. It was like it was like the backyard, but I'd never been there.
Is Harvard College? It's not the same as Harvard University.
It is. It's the same. Okay. Yeah, the university is the whole school, and the undergraduate, the 4 years of undergraduate, it's called Harvard College, but Harvard University, same thing.
So the level is quite high.
It's a now today. I was joking. I could never get into Harvard today, and it's. I went to a public high school and got a. It was a good town. My parents chose to live in Hingham because they had this foreign language program I was telling you about before we started. where if they start the foreign language in 4th grade, they thought that was really important. And they had a good science program. I thought when I went to Harvard, I thought I'd go into medicine because my father he was a physician. My mother was a dentist. So science was kind of in the family, but then I got off that path pretty quickly when I got to college. But so going back to Mark, he went to Harvard 2 years after me. He started 2 years after me, and then we met in this crazy sport, rowing, where you train all year around, and you have a few races at the end of the season. So it's a lot of training and relatively small amount of racing. So if you're going to like it, you're going to really have to enjoy the training. You're going to have to enjoy the everyday getting down to the boathouse, going out. We rowed in 8s, so 8 rowers and a coxswain, someone steering and telling you what to do. And
what I know about rowing is really, actually, I think it was in Harvard, or I know it was in Harvard, is about, I've read they made a movie about Zuckerberg, remember? And they had the book before that I've read, which was really cool. I'll find the name. And they talk about the Winkervol's brothers, which were Olympic, right?
Yeah, they were very good rowers.
Yeah. And they just explain how much work it is, how much food you have to eat, because they were eating 10,000 calories a day. I mean, it's crazy, insane.
Yeah,
that's what you did. I mean, kind of
Yeah, I mean, the only difference was that I was on the lightweight crew team. Mark and I were lightweight crew. So you can't weigh more. Nobody on the boat can weigh more than 160 pounds. So that's maybe 70 kilo.
Okay.
So you can't eat as much as you want to when it's time when you're weighing in for the season. But the same principle, that you train a lot, and we really loved it. I mean, we liked the people. It was the people that were there. It was the feeling of being in the boathouse, the places, and then the competition. It was really exciting to get on the starting line, and you train so hard, and then you want to do well. And we had some success. I had not really found another sport that I felt really good at. Growing up, I was playing a lot of different things, but never found anything that I felt really successful at until I found rowing. So that felt like an important. It was such an important thing in my life for those 4 years. But this factors into where Strava came from, because we both, when we graduate, I graduated in 1988 and Mark in 1990. We left the university and we left the team. And so now we don't have that same experience of going to the boathouse every day and training hard and then competing. And we found that we were less motivated to be active. We were in such good shape when we were on the team. We felt happier. We were better. We were good. We got good grades when we were training. Life made sense when we were on the crew team. And now without the team, you have to find the structure. You have to find the motivation, and it's much harder. So
it's the kind of the framework, right? Which is interesting, because you have a kind of routines, people around you, a trainer, a coach, and then you have to go to bed early. Maybe you can probably not party so hard.
There's
all of those things.
It drives good behavior.
All
around.
But
you also feel accomplished. It's the structure, and then there's also a goal. And achieving the goal, or reaching the place where you get to the start line and you feel that you can do your best. And so even if we didn't always win, but you felt like you could do your best because you had put the effort in. I think that was a big part of what the reward system in my brain was. I do this effort and I get something out of it. I get intrinsic benefit, like inside me, I feel better. And then if we win a race, there's this external recognition. And then there's also just the friendship, the camaraderie between the people on the team was a big factor as to what made it special for us. So when we left the university, we lost that. And that was a big factor, what made us think about how to get that back. Strava is built around that principle of keep people active. In Strava, you can follow other people, see their workouts, they can follow you back. Of course, there's all sorts of ways you can see the data around your workout, but it's really about the community of people you can belong to inside the experience that make it come to life. And that's what we experienced.
Even the kudo thing. I think the term kudo is much better than like. I love the kudo. But one thing I have to say is the term camaraderie that you use a lot, actually. I don't know if you figured out, but it's probably French, camaraderie, right? Comrade, from probably maybe a Russian root, I don't know. But it's interesting because I believe it's, if you use it a lot, it means a lot, right?
And it's one of our core values. We can talk about Strava's core values, but camaraderie, the principle of camaraderie is that you have to think about you have a responsibility. So if friendship is different than camaraderie. You can be friends, and you can also then be teammates. And the difference on this, I think, maybe a lot of different ways you can describe it. But if you're going to be a teammate, then you have responsibility. You have to do a job, and you count on the other person to do their job. It may not be the same thing. In a boat, it looks like everyone is doing the same thing. All the rowers are doing the same thing. They each have an oar. They're each pulling on the oar in synchronicity. But they are actually different jobs for the different seats in the boat. And you have to trust the person to do their job, and they trust that you're doing yours.
Sounds more professional. I mean, teammates takes out affection. I mean, kind of, there's no... I don't know if I can say it's not love, but it's kind of affect or something. A comrade, you're like stick together, right? It's
you have to just sometimes you have to say the hard things. You give the example I use is if it's friendship, then you maybe don't give the feedback. That hey, when you do this thing, here's what happens, and maybe you want to think about that. You might consider doing it a different way. But that feedback is something that's very important for a team. If, in a boat, hey, look, when you're missing the point of this drill we're doing, and I need, if we're going to go fast, I'd like you to accept the feedback that you're not doing it right. The coach might do that. A teammate might do that. And a friend might say nothing. A friend might say, well, they'll have to figure it out. They'll trust that they can figure it out on their own. So there's a difference between camaraderie and friendship.
Is it good? I mean, shouldn't we tell our friends the way you explained it? Actually, it sounds to me like what we call non-violence communication.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't we be able to tell our friends? When you
we
say
should.
That?
We should.
Sometimes you feel lazy. You just
or I mean, there's we all like to be liked, so maybe I know in my own life I can say, if I speak for myself, it's. I want to be liked. If I say the hard thing to the person, maybe they don't like me anymore. I don't want that outcome, so I don't say it. And maybe that eventually gets in the way of the friendship. But in a team, you have a higher purpose. That it's not the relationship between the two people. It's how the whole team thinks about as a system, trying to accomplish the goal, and we wanted to win. We wanted to be as good as we could be. So.
Why I'm thinking about that is that I had a great talk here with a guy called Nicolas Aignan. It was, I would say, episode 207 or something like that.
Okay.
And he said we should reprogram the relationship we have. Actually, it wasn't with our friends, but with your parents or, close relatives. Because actually your father, your mother is they're not your parents anymore when you're an adult. I mean, they shouldn't parent you anymore. They shouldn't tell you, you can't do that with your kid. You can, I can actually. I'm a grown up, so I can do whatever I want. So I don't want you to. And I think it was very interesting the way he did with his parents and parents-in-law. But it's brave because actually you don't want to do that. You're kind of if I do that, I will harm them or I will harm the relationship we have, as you said. But
yeah, sure. I've been fortunate to be able to have benefited from therapy, for example, having a therapist, someone who can help you understand how to have a different relationship than the one you had as a child with your parents. And that is absolutely an important step. When you're a child, you're navigating all these uncertainties, all these things you don't know how to process. And you develop these tools or habits, ways of living to survive childhood. And your parents are there to protect, but also to educate or to, if they're kind of doing their job. They're actively parenting. But as adults, if you approach it with the same, I'm the child, they're the parent, it's not going to be a good relationship.
Yeah.
You do have to change.
Sorry, I'm going some other path, but yeah. So let's get back to Harvard or post Harvard.
Yeah.
You said you were trying to find this camaraderie back, or
so we graduate from school. I worked for a couple of years in Cambridge, in right next in the city where Harvard is located is Cambridge, Massachusetts. And so I'm working there, working at a small consulting firm that two of my professors had started. And I'm
the Boston Consulting Group.
It was not so. That Boston Consulting Group was actually pretty young. This is long ago. This is deep into the 20th century. I was, and Mark was still on the crew team because he was 2 years behind me. So I actually part-time coached the freshman crew team.
Okay.
I coached one of the boats. And so we would see each other at the boathouse. The friendship with Mark and I that friendship started from rowing, but then it also then moved into like when we graduate, now we're friends outside of school. And that's actually a hard transition, right? Some friends you have in school and you don't talk to them again.
It's true.
But Mark and I, we stayed in touch. And so I worked for 2 years. Then I go to graduate school. I got a PhD in economics. Because I had this experience working for this consulting firm. Okay. These professors impressed upon me, I just thought they were, I just enjoyed the work I was doing. I thought if I get a higher degree, the PhD, I could come back and continue to work at this consulting firm, make more money, do more interesting work. But instead of doing that, I went on to teach.
So you're a doctor. I should call you doctor, right?
Yeah. In my former life, I was an economist. I haven't
You're still a doctor, right?
Yeah.
You're going to Germany right after today.
Then I can be the doctor.
Over there, when people tell you have to tell you, I'm Dr. Horvath.
Yeah, doctor. I always think, no, that's my father. My father is Dr. Horvath. So I go off to grad school. Mark graduates and he gets a job working in venture capital after taking some time to try. He did a few other things before, but he goes to Palo Alto for the job, working at a venture firm. And
early 90s, right?
Yeah, early 1993.
Venture firms in 93, 94. I mean, it was like
at the middle age of it's like the Middle Ages. They had venture capital grew out of the semiconductor industry. Some of the earliest semiconductor companies were, they raised capital from
Silicon, right?
That's really the word Silicon Valley comes from the chips, from the chip manufacturing. But the semiconductor industry kind of created this new class of finance that invested in risky businesses instead of having to bootstrap the business or maybe taking out a commercial loan. You're now you're joined at the hip with the investor. They own a piece of the company, and that came. So Marco's first. He's living in Palo Alto. I'm graduating from the PhD program, and I have an offer on the East Coast, and then an offer at Stanford to teach at Stanford and a few other places. So I'm choosing between these things, and I'm thinking, well, I've always wanted to try California, and I got married during grad school to Anna, and she had also wanted to live in California after graduating from college. She had gone to Northwestern.
What age you got married?
Oh, 25, the day after I turned 25, which is like crazy. Now it feels like, and now I have kids who are, 3 of my kids are older than that.
Yeah.
And I think, looking at them, I'm like, I was married at your age, and then I had you at your age.
Your brain is not even.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, you're not who you are. You haven't become who you are yet at 25. But so I decide, Anna and I decide we want to try living in California, and I accept the offer at Stanford. And in part because, I knew my friend Mark was there. And so we moved we live in Mountain View, the town next to Palo Alto. That's where it may be famous now because Google headquarters are in Mountain View. And I'm teaching economics at Stanford. But the very interesting thing is I never had, before I got there, I think I had just learned that there's this thing called email. You can communicate with people by sending a message through the computer. I'd never had that before. And when I got to Stanford, the first day I get my computer, and there's something called a browser, an internet browser.
So what year was that?
1994.
Okay, yeah.
94. So there's a browser on my computer, and I don't know what this thing called the internet is, the World Wide Web. I don't know what it is, but Mark comes to my office and he says, "Have you seen the internet?" And it's like have you seen this movie? Have you read the book, The Internet? Well, it's there on our computers, and we're wondering, what is this thing going to do for us? It's like, we're kind of looking at it as if it's something special. Like, does it have any magic tricks? What can it do in our lives? And we start imagining, like, well, if this is going to be anything, what can you do with it? Kind of, you could go to a few websites and you could read some things, but it was really difficult in those early years to imagine what you see today. In terms of what there were tens of thousands of websites. Now there are, I don't know how many hundreds of millions, maybe billions of websites. But back then it was all very, very difficult to understand how it would affect our lives. So we started imagining, what could we do with this thing? And that's where we got the idea for Strava. We said, well, could we create the virtual locker room? Could we create this place where you could meet your teammates and you couldn't work out together in the metaverse? No one's going to work out in the metaverse. I can guarantee you. You don't get fit by having your avatar do the work for you, but
while drinking
Coca-Cola. So, but we wanted to be able to share the workouts and share the experiences with other people using this new medium called the internet.
What's interesting here is that, I discovered, I believe, the internet and the emails probably 3 years after, which is kind of an eternity, right? Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. If you think of what happened, I mean, when I was so I entered my business school in 97, so that's the first time I was used to computer. I probably have. I think it was the first time I saw the internet and a browser and the emails. So it would be 97. And in between, then I went for an internship in New York in 2000, and I figured out how big was the internet in the US. And actually, I was in those 3 years. I was communicating. After 3 years, I was communicating with my parents thanks to the emails and chats. Yeah. And so it was big because even my parents were already on it. So I think those breakthroughs, those moments, which we're living right now with the AI, probably.
I think it's going to repeat itself. Yeah, there, it's going to move very quickly.
Yeah, and you're like, what am I going to do with all that? I mean, what's going to change? It's going to change, that's for sure. But what are we going to do with all of that? And yesterday, with I recorded with a French guy called Georges Raymond, and he's the head of Pascal, which is a leading company in quantum computing, right? A world leader. They just raised 100 million, and you're like, my God, my brain is just going to explode, burst. Right. I mean, literally. I mean, what's going to happen with all this? It's just, and in the right now, in the next years, and I think what's interesting is what happened to you, and it's something I talked about with Fanny Moisan also. You know a company called Vestiaire Collective?
No.
They resell goods like actually luxury good mainly, but they do also, I mean, clothing and it can be what you call handbags and stuff like this, Hermes, Chanel and stuff like this worldwide. And they have like 2 billion incomes, and it's very big. Yeah. And she said, I mean, it's easy. You have something that is like a problem. Your problem was like you missed this boathouse, right? Yeah. You missed this camaraderie. You missed this thing. You have a problem, and you find a way to just solve it. You ask around if people have the same problem. If some people have the same problem, you just solve it, right? Yeah, that's business, right?
Yeah. That's really good observation. It's like you finding what problem do you want to solve is like the first step to starting anything, I think, is what are you trying to solve?
And that was your common problem.
And,
right?
and we chose a problem that we had.
Yeah.
Instead of choosing a problem someone else had, we figured if we can solve something in our own life, we at least would be the customer. Maybe it's only a handful of people who have the same problem we do. The interesting thing is things were moving very fast in 94, 95, 96, but we didn't start Strava then because when we wrote a business plan and
fortunately,
yeah, well, I think we were very lucky that we didn't, but we went to talk about the idea with some people who could actually create websites. We didn't know how. I was an economist. Mark worked in venture, but he was not didn't program computers. We weren't writing software.
And it was a bit harder at the time. And expensive.
Yeah, it was, and the tools that we didn't know what we were getting into. We just figured, maybe that was another thing is like if you spend too much time researching all the things that could go wrong, you don't go outside, you stay home. But we talked to a few companies that were building websites, and they said, your idea is not going to work. No one's going to share personal information with complete strangers on the internet. They're not going to do that. In 94, 95, they were right, right? No,
at that time.
And they said, how are people going to record these workouts? What are they going to type in? They ran for 10 miles today and their time. I mean, it's going to be a very bad experience. So they were giving us really good advice about here are the problems you cannot solve with technology today. And so while the idea is still the same today, what Strava is, the time was wrong. So I talk about this as like it's a 20th century idea that we had to wait until the 21st century to get started. But they did. They were also this company. It was a small website developer called the Cedra Group. They some friends who had met at Stanford. They told us, here's a problem. If you want to start a company, here's a problem that we see a lot, which is that when companies create a website, now their customers want to contact them. The customer wants to reach them through the internet instead of calling them on the phone. Customer service used to be something you did via telephone. But now with the internet, customers want to send the companies that they frequent. Yeah, you're hearing the feedback.
I'm hearing the phone. I'll just put your phone right there. I'll see if it's better. It's okay. That's weird.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe our.
Am I speaking too loud?
No. Yeah, it's weird. We have probably you hear it, guys. I'm sorry, but maybe the we use some softwares that just cleans the thing afterwards. Okay. But it's going to be. That's weird. I don't get it. How? Our phones are quite far. I don't see. Maybe it's just in our ears. Let's keep.
Okay,
going.
We keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better.
It's less.
Yeah. We see.
So they said, why don't you build some kind of a software application that can help handle email communication, email customer support, email-based customer support. So that became Kana software, which is
a great idea. I mean, it was somehow.
It was. Now it seems obvious, but back then it was very new.
It could end up as a Salesforce. Yeah. You start with that, and then it's.
Yeah. I mean, in 1994, I was sending my first email, and in '95, Mark and I were starting a company that was building systems to help companies handle customer service via email, and so. So no one was an expert at any of this. Everyone was learning it along the way. This is a really good example of like one of the things I think is really how to do it is to, the Cedra group said, well, we'll help you find some companies that are having this problem and you can talk to them. They introduced us to 3 or 4 companies that gave us about 10,000.
I believe it's my phone, actually. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I'm interrupting. I'll just completely switch it off. And sorry, let's keep going anyway.
Yeah. So they gave us a big stack of paper, which represented about thousands of emails that these 3 or 4 companies had received from customers. They gave us these paper copies of emails, and they said, see if this can help you figure out how would you build a system to handle this kind of communication from customers. And so that obviously, like that way of doing, you don't need a lot of information to, sort of what is the problem they're trying to solve. We learned it from reading through these emails and understanding some things about how customers communicate with companies about customer support issues. And we built a very basic prototype. But so doing things that don't scale is like an example. This is really the basic ideas. This isn't, the way you would do it if you were a big company. You would hire a research team and go out talk to dozens of companies, and you would spend years, maybe months and months prototyping and doing. We just said we don't have time. We don't have the resources. We have to just get going. So we bought went to the computer store, bought a database software called FileMaker Pro, and we built the original system as like a custom version of a piece of shrink wrap software. Basically, and that was enough to prove, and we sold that. We sold that solution. We hired a contractor to develop it for us, and.
It was sold as a software as a service, or no? It was sold as a one shot.
And upfront cost
on a CD-ROM, or
exactly. No, it's old school, right? But that was enough to prove that people would be willing to buy it. People would be willing to pay for this tool that we had built. And then we raised some venture money, and then we actually hired a team that could develop a real software application. And eventually that company kind of, from 1995, where we started, until 1999, it was about 4 years. And we took it public. And by that point I was going back to teaching, figured I'd go back to teach economics. How
long after you created it?
It was about 4 years.
So you took it public, IPO.
In September of 1999.
My God, that was fast.
It was really fast, right? It was a rocket ship, and
from how many? I mean, what was the numbers of people?
So it was about it wasn't a lot of people. It was maybe just over 100 people at the time. And in terms of revenues, gosh, I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't big. Maybe less than 100 million in revenue, but. In those years, you took a company public to raise money. You actually,
less than 100 million in 4 years.
That's relatively fast. Yeah. So, but it's you took a company public so you could raise more capital, because there weren't a lot of these late stage investors, venture firms had that class of venture. Was pretty scarce.
Yeah, it was the things, seed, Series A, Series B, and public. Something like that. Right. Sometimes not even Series B, right?
Yeah, so the IPO was the means to raise more capital to keep going, right? We then, I was out of the company by 2000 and back to teaching, and Mark stayed with the company through the IPO.
But back to teaching, rich. You were rich.
Yes. Now I had some wealth. It was remarkable when we said we're going to start this company. We said, what does success look like for us? Well, we make some money. We build a product people want. We're able to build this company, and we can sell the company or take it public. But we will. The work that we're putting in will pay off in terms of wealth for us and for our families.
Like kind of for the rest of your life, you were back for teaching just as a choice.
Yeah, I think it's more like I thought to myself, I had spent all this time developing my human capital. I'd gone to graduate school. I really liked economics. I liked the study of it. I liked the research I was doing, and so I was thinking, now I have the freedom to decide what to. Maybe it's not just about the job, but what do I want to do? And I wanted to teach economics. I really was interested also in what I had learned starting a company, and what that started to influence the kind of research I was interested in. I was very interested in how companies get created, and the role that venture capital plays in creating companies, and how that is though it's a very small slice of finance. Back then it was probably less than 1% of finance was venture money, venture capital. We think of it as a big, big thing because it creates companies that we all know about. But it's a very small amount of money compared to the big finance, the pool of capital in the world.
This is kind of original still, because there are not so many entrepreneurs that are, make a couple of millions or more and just go back to teaching. I believe for your students it was a great opportunity because at the end you had some, corporate or entrepreneur skills. From seed to IPO, you had a PhD, you had like the whole thing. It was the Hall of Fame, right? And you were still young, so understanding the world where you were. It was like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
That's when the first bubble burst, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
Also you were lucky for, a year or two after.
I lost a lot of the wealth came down in that, but I feel very fortunate. We had that experience and we did well, so I was thinking I can bring this experience. It's something I experienced. I can bring this into the classroom. I can bring it into my research.
That was Stanford still?
So by 2000, I had switched to teaching at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. And so I was teaching in an MBA program now. I was teaching entrepreneurship and doing research on venture capital and how formation of businesses is part of the cycle of the business cycle, the sort of the rise and increase and decrease of gross domestic product.
What were the things you were teaching back then that remains for entrepreneurship? If you had 3, 4, 5, 10 like pillars that you would have to tell me, what would they be that remains good, and are there some that are not good anymore, that are not true anymore?
So I taught entrepreneurship for about 4 years. And it was really a how-to kind of class. It was, I expected the students, the class was maybe, 40 students in the class. I expected them to be really engaged around an idea that they were, if they weren't going to actually start it, they were going to at least pretend while they were taking my class that they were going to start this idea. And they would work in teams. They would develop the business plan throughout the course. And they would present the business plan to a group of entrepreneurs and investors at the end. And there would be a competition to see which idea had gotten the furthest. And so the how-to included what makes for a good idea. That was the number one thing. How do you decide what to do? You might have 2 or 3 different ideas. How do you figure out which is the best one for you? Another element is how do you get started? Like once you have selected the idea, what do you do next? And I really pushed people to think about if you have to create a prototype. You have to be making it real. You can't just be talking about it. You have to make something, whether it's software or hardware or it's a service. You have to create it and actually start putting it in the hands of customers, letting the world experience your idea. That's how you learn the most about whether it's a good idea or not. You can't just talk about it. You have to do it. And so do it at a small scale, do it rough, do it, all sorts of reasons why it won't actually be the thing you eventually do, but you won't get far if you don't actually stop talking and start doing. And then
fake it until you make it somehow, but at least
exactly.
Fake it.
You have to do it. You cannot just sit and talk. You have to do something. And then maybe the third part is, okay, so what is the role of venture capital and investment in the idea? The 90s really screwed up a lot of people's mindset, which is have an idea, go raise money. That's broken. Have an idea, go raise money was possible when there's lots of capital and everyone's chasing after ideas because they're afraid they're going to miss the opportunity. And that's what happened in the 90s, 97, 98, and 99 led to the crash in 2000 was too much money was chasing the ideas on the napkin. And instead,
which was kind of the case recently.
Yeah, this has happened. History repeats itself. Okay. We know that. We know that. Yes, it happened again. that what you have to instead think about is like your customer is the investor telling you it's a good idea isn't nearly as important as the customer telling you that what you have built is worth paying for. So if you listen to your investors, either they'll tell you it's a bad idea and they're wrong, or they'll tell you it's a good idea, they could be wrong too. But if you listen to your customers, if a customer says that I like this, I would buy this, or they say I don't want it, here's why it doesn't work for me, that's where you have to focus. So what's the role of the investor versus the customer in helping you get to the right product, the right service that you're trying to offer? So those are some of the things that I really tried to, teach. And I liked that for a while. I really enjoyed giving, my experiences could go directly into the content. It was good for a few years.
I think it's interesting to have, because at this moment we have a lot of creators or influencers or people that are giving masterclasses about entrepreneurship, and I think it's interesting to mix the two worlds of academic, which is useful at the end of the day. You can't just skip things, you have to go through, I believe, you won't say, maybe you would say the contrary, but you have to go through some basic knowledge, and as you say, history repeats itself, and so if you know kind of a bit of history, you will understand things that are going to happen again. And still, you have to get some people who have had or have some skin in the game, right? And that's what I'm thinking about right now, and trying to probably work on a master class with a business school that is going to be a mix-up in between people who have skin in the game and people who are out of the game. You were both at the same time, which is interesting. At a critical time. Actually.
Yeah, it's. I also tried to bring what I had experienced into my research. Not as successfully. I think I started to lose the focus. Partly because having the experience of starting a company, it was very exciting. I felt really productive. The work I did, I could see the results right away. And then when I went back to doing research, I found that things felt really slow. It was like I was going in the slow lane compared to what it was like starting a company. And that's maybe another aspect. If you're going to teach a masterclass, maybe also what is it like? Entrepreneurship itself as a lifestyle, it can really screw with your brain. You can get delusional. You can get not everything is solved with money and people and work. Rushing at something and chasing something. If you can't approach your relationships the way you approach a startup idea, you can't approach how you spend your day with taking care of your body, taking care of your mind. You can't approach it the same way you approach starting a company. We used to talk about having the startup like it's on your brain all the time. It's always on. And if that's the way you live your life, well, then you're not present with your kids. You're not present with your spouse. You're not actually there for your friends. So you have to find a way to sort of create the separation of you are not your startup. Your identity is not the company. You are your own self. You can remember who you are every day.
I believe the fact that you talk about it right now and now almost in the mid 2020s, right?
Yeah.
All of what you're saying, we're kind of mature about that. We've been extreme on all of these. Right before we recorded, we talked about Ironman and we were saying most of my Ironman friends are divorced, right?
Yeah.
And both men and women actually, and so if you push too hard on things, it's not going to work. Sometimes it works. It's true that some entrepreneurs that have been pushing very hard on, like in Uber or in, a lot of areas, they worked out. I don't know for themselves, but at the end of the day, the company did work. But I think I believe like not most, but a lot of Strava users are entrepreneurs or the core, a bit of the core people, and probably they take care of themselves. And the more it goes, I believe I take a good care of my family. I'm still obsessed with my entrepreneur life, and I'm still taking care of myself. So, my inside, how do you say, stretches, you would say, or are that I'm maybe not as good as I want in each of them, right? Yeah. And I'm trying to be in peace with that. Yeah. That's probably, but I think we're getting there. I mean, in the way we talk to people, in the way people, I mean, entrepreneurs kind of trying to get there now. Don't you feel that?
Yeah, it's. I wonder. There's like where I'm now in my third decade of being an entrepreneur, right? So maybe I've getting older. You start to have more perspective. So I don't know that I would say that it's so much that all entrepreneurs are learning this. It's more like something you learn as you do this more and more. Like what's the place? What's driving you? Is it always to create something new? The next thing, the term serial entrepreneur. I don't like that term because it sort of implies you're always going to go to the next thing instead of saying, well, maybe you can create something that's worth staying with. And Strava was, in fact, that was. I see you've been building your startup as thriving and. Do you want to leave it and start something again? Do you want to? When Mark and I started Strava, we were like, well, if it's a good idea, wouldn't we want to keep working on it? Maybe it will take 20 years, and in fact now it's in its 14th year, and we're still working at it. We're still trying to make it great. So it's a little bit less about like moving on to the next thing, which I think was the mindset we had when we were in our 20s and 30s. Like you got to go to the next thing and the next thing. Now it's more, can we build something that's sustainable, that is going to withstand the test of time, the 100-year brand. It will outlive us if we do it right.
Is it because we're over 40 that we think that way? Mm-hmm. Isn't it good to be thinking another way before, because to be imbalanced at some point probably isn't, I don't know, to push hard on things when you're 25 well, I mean, this is also where I think the relationship between you as the entrepreneur, the team you build, and then the investors you bring on, they have to work in conjunction with each other. If you're not putting your everything into the company, then the team may not be as willing to stay and stick. They want to see that you're 100% in, and the investors as well. Or they'll go find someone else. The team can go work somewhere else. The investors can invest in other companies. So I think it drives that behavior. And I think it's difficult to find a way to not be that way. I mean, I think it's difficult to find balance or find the way that the company doesn't become everything about your life. But then you still, when the company's all done, maybe whether it's good or a bad outcome, where's your family? Where's your spouse? Where are your friends? You can't get some things back. You mentioned Ironman training is like, for a period of time you have if you're going to do the race, you're going to have to train, and 20 hours a week. Yeah.
So you have to then say, okay, so have I made the promise that when the race is over, I will then give back time to the people I had taken time away from to be able to focus on the race. And the company is like that too. It just takes longer. It's a many-year proposition to say, I'm going to, and that's I think where people get mixed up. They say, I'm going to take all the next 6 years, I'm going to work on my startup and forget about everything else. But on the other side of 6 years, 7 years, whatever it takes, those other things may not be there. They're going to be gone. Right. And that's what you have to find a different way. You have to find a different way to balance your life. And that's something that I think I've taken a long time to learn. But I think I know it now.
The crazy thing about that story and with Mark and yourself is that you ended up the previous company, or you left in 99, right?
Yeah.
And you started the next one in 2009.
Yeah. I had another company in between as well. In 2000.
On your side.
Yeah. So I was teaching at the Tech School of Business, and there were right next to the business school, there's an engineering school, and there were two professors there who were starting a biotech firm and called Glycofy. And they were asking me for advice on things like the business plan and raising capital. And it sounded really interesting. I enjoyed talking to them about this idea. So I said, well, I'll join you. Sounds like, again, I got distracted, like my academic career was there, but the startup idea was very enticing. It was seemed exciting. So I, once again, left academia and joined the start of this biotech firm as the CFO and head of operations. And we raised money, we built a team, we developed the technology, and eventually, the company was sold to another pharmaceutical company. That was in 2005. So it was roughly from 2001 until 2005 for
another
5
4 years before you sold another company.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe that was another example of where like I was all into this thing. I knew nothing about enterprise software when I started. When Mark and I started Kana. And I knew nothing about biotech when I joined these two entrepreneurs starting this biotech firm. But after the second one, I realized, okay, so there are some things that are actually similar between these two. Very similar, how to build a team, how to raise capital. And this is somewhat like, it's repeatable. It's, the process of creating something is you can boil it down to, there are elements that will increase the chances of success. And now I've learned some playbooks. I've learned a lot of things. And now I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go back to teaching now. And now this is what I do. This is my job or what I get the most satisfaction out of in my work life is helping people start companies or starting things myself. And it's the process of creating something. So,
did you write this playbook somewhere? Or
no, I have. I mean, at different times, I've taught courses on it, but I have notes. But no, I haven't written it down too much. But it's less a playbook, more like the principles I talked about. So, what makes for a good idea? What do you do first to build something, and then the role of the the capital to help the idea get bigger. Team, how to build team, and really connect people to a mission. These are things that are really important. You have to have values, mission, and vision even before you have the product built. You have to understand what you're trying to do for whom, what's the why behind it. Those are really important things. If you don't create that initially, you may never go back to do it. You get so busy with other things, you don't create, and then it gets created for you by somebody else, and you shouldn't let someone else create your own mission for what you're trying to build. So yeah, these are the things that I learned of these two examples. And then the 2006, really, Mark and I start talking about wouldn't we want to start a company with each other again? We're ready for
what would be the idea again.
Yeah, and so now what's the idea?
Before we go there, just one question, because I hear you in the playbook. Raising capital is compulsory. More,
maybe not.
The more I grow, the more I see. Bootstrapping is kind of also interesting.
I think about it like, starting a company is hard. Raising capital is hard. Starting a company where you raise capital can make things in some ways can make it easier. Now you have money to work with to hire a team and pay for things before you generate revenue, but it changes things too. And so a company that is bootstrapped is going to be different than a company that is venture backed, that it has raised capital. And I find it really interesting to think about businesses that don't raise venture capital. That there's really benefits to having investors along, where they can really force more discipline, and they can create, they can accelerate things, and the capital can accelerate, but also their experience can help. They can bridge to a network of experiences that you may not have yourself. But there is something really intriguing about a company that is bootstrapped, that doesn't take outside capital, and in part because many of the things that that an investor could bring, you can now learn. It's like it's not so mysterious anymore. What you can learn from a network of other individuals, you can tap into them. You can reach them through LinkedIn. You can reach people that you never could reach before through technology today. For example, if you need it, whereas before it was maybe you got introduced to that person through somebody who maybe an investor introduced you to the person who can give you the answer to the thing you're wondering about. Now you might be able to reach them on your own. And so
it's true that good VCs can bring you sometimes what's very important right now, actually, because things are evolving so fast also that maybe you get some good ideas about, I don't know. So one good idea we'll talk about. I was so shocked that you didn't start with a mobile app for like so long at Strava. I was like, what the fuck?
I think that has more to do with we were not on the cutting edge ourselves.
But maybe, I don't know, a VC firm would have told you, there's those things called the iPhone. No, you tell me more about that. But see, I mean, sometimes they bring you stuff like this. I believe there are more and more on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean clubs or places where you can gather. We have like this bootstrap club in France, or those stuff where the bootstrappers can hang out and have exchange of ideas and stuff like this. But it's true that it's sometimes something I ask myself: should we raise money on some businesses? We raise money, on some other we don't, and both are. Interesting paths.
Yeah. You have to. There's a role for capital in some companies, and then there's some companies where if you raise capital, it will ruin it. It doesn't. You can't generate the return that capital would need, and then
you can't create OpenAI without capital, or Facebook. I mean, Meta, all of the Meta apps and stuff like this. But some others, maybe, I don't know. Could it be possible to create a Strava right now without raising money?
There are companies in our space that didn't raise venture capital, and so I know a few of them, and I think they've done really good work. Ride with GPS is one example. I really respect what the founders did there. That they bootstrapped that company, and it's really successful. I think that it's accomplished what they wanted to create.
I think is it MyFitnessPal?
MyFitnessPal, that was bootstrapped. They did raise money in the end, but
because I have someone, Adrien Mignati, who's based in Bordeaux. Actually, he's got so it's not MyFitnessPal, but he's got one of the first worldwide fitness app, plus 10 other apps that are great, and he's bootstrapped. Totally bootstrapped them all. Yeah. And what their knowledge is to create apps. I mean, on the app stores and monetize them. They know how to do that big time, and they make like over 50 million incomes a year, bootstrapped.
Right. That's great for that's an example of where you can create a company that can generate dependable, repeatable profits at that scale. And that would be considered a failure if it was venture backed. But if it's not venture backed, it's considered a wild success. It's generating. It's exactly meets his needs in terms of why he created it, and he wants to repeat that and build more apps and be able to generate more. That sense of like that's what he did it for. Whereas if you had brought in investors, they would say, well, this isn't going anywhere. This isn't big enough. We need to be bigger. We need to, in order to make a return. So some companies should absolutely be venture backed, and some companies should not. And I think that's where early in the beginning, when we started Strava, I'll speak from our experience. We decided to fund Strava ourselves before we raised venture money for the first 3 years, because we didn't know if it was going to be the kind of company that could generate the return that venture would need to be.
So you work full time on your own money, with employees,
without employees.
Any income, probably? Or?
Well, we turned on the subscription service at the end of the first year, so we had very small. A few $1,000s a month. So we had a team of 9 people, 10 people by the time we raised the first round. So we were a budget maybe of $500,000 a year. And we did, we probably by the time we raised...
Which would be the price of a mobile app developer
exactly.
today.
Exactly. I know. We were doing things very, very cost effectively back then.
So that was in 2009. So you were about to tell me you met again in 2006.
Yeah.
And it took you 3 years to figure out that the good idea was the one you had.
Yeah, we explored a few. We didn't jump right away to the idea of the virtual locker room. We said, yeah, that's maybe it, and maybe there's another idea. We saw what was going on with.
And you knew you were
environment, and so we were exploring different ideas.
You knew you would create a company together again.
Yeah, This was very intentional. It was just Mark and I wanted to create a company. In the summer of 2006, we decided we've been talking by telephone because there was no Zoom and video chat, no mobile phones.
Did you hang out sometime? Did you go on holidays together? Or
I was living on the East Coast. He's living on the West Coast, and so we said, we have to get together. This is talking by phone is good, but if we got together for a few days, so we met up in Colorado, in Vail, Colorado, in the summer. It sounds beautiful, like mountains, but we spent most of the 3 days there in a room with the shades drawn so we could focus. And we hammered out, okay, so what are we doing? What is this? We didn't know what it was going to be yet, but what's the why behind it? Who are we serving? What do we want to create? And we did have a lot of different ideas coming in, and we came out with, we want to create something for people who want to live a life with more adventure, more fun, that we want to build something that will enable them to be healthier. So in some ways it was the idea of the virtual locker room was definitely going to fit in this, but we created a framework with this. The principles behind the company we're creating was for a consumer who wants to believe and trust the company we've created to help them lead a healthier life. So then we took that to say, okay, so what would be that? What would make that true? And that's where we eventually, got back to the idea of the virtual locker room. I want to introduce one more person here. It's very important. At the end of that year, 2006, December 20th. I know the day because it was my birthday. December 20th, 2006, I turned 40. And I met Davis Kitchell. We were introduced by a common friend. He lived in the town next to Hanover in Norwich, Vermont. And we met for coffee in the morning. And he told me about an idea that he'd been working on. I said, well, I'm working on this startup with my friend Mark. It's about health and fitness. He's like, well, I'm working on this, just playing around with a GPS device, trying to see if I can get it to help me with rowing on a river, just track how fast I'm going, and maybe I could use it for cycling. And he was just playing around with GPS data. I had never seen GPS. I'd never seen. We hadn't considered that as part of what this company was going to do, but meeting Davey, his nickname is Davey. Meeting Davey really transformed where Strava was going to go, because we decided that Davey, we could hire Davey to the team. We asked him to join us as a contractor to just keep going, keep developing. We weren't sure exactly what he was going to create, but he was inventing something, and we wanted to see if this could be something we could use in the company we were going to create. So by the summer of 2008, we had developed this into a prototype of what you see in Strava today. The leaderboard, a segment where you could match times with cycling. That was cycling only then, but you could, using GPS, record a workout, record a ride you do, and it would, if you went over this hill climb, your time on the hill would automatically be recorded by this prototype that Davey had built, and then you could see the times ranked, fastest to slowest times of anyone who had done that climb.
Okay.
Without anyone pushing any buttons, all you had to do was record with a GPS device on your ride. And so that was the basis of the first version of Strava, was the segment leaderboard, the Strava segment leaderboard that is still there today in the experience. Not, back then it was what defined Strava. It was what made it. Yes, a part of it was about making it so that it would be performance oriented. You could see as you went faster, you could see your ranking in the leaderboard go up, and now there's many other things in the Strava experience besides that. But back in the beginning, that was really the unique thing about Strava.
That's interesting because I believe it's a different way of. It's very deep and it's very important. The way I used Runkeeper before was just a backlog.
Yeah,
it was I just want to get my. I mean, there was kind of a community thing, but I just want to get track of my activities and see year after year what's happening, what's my progress, what happened when I ran more, less, and so on. And actually, it's an idea, but I never go back to those years. Actually, I should probably I would have graphics or probably I can have that on Strava now, but. But I believe those things, the community, the locker, you said the
virtual locker room.
The virtual locker room, I think is interesting, and I think what you wrote back then in Colorado is still here, right?
Yeah, very much so. It's if you look forward, go all the way now to 2022, 23. We joined forces with a company called FatMap. They were building map technology that enabled people to really have a great adventure in the outdoors, whether it was hiking or skiing or mountaineering, riding, bicycle riding. And they had done everything through exploration. We had done it through community. We had basic maps. We used Google Maps, Mapbox maps, good maps, but FatMap had created maps to really unlock adventure in the outdoors. And this goes back to Vail. We were talking about, we want to bring more adventure into people's lives, more sense of you can go and explore and have great experiences in the outdoors. So when we met FatMap and met the team, Misha Gopal, who's the co-founder and CEO, started to get to know him. What came to life was this is what Strava also was supposed to be, and we hadn't yet created it. And so by joining forces, we could bring more of that sense of exploration. And now that's where we're still working on the integrating. But the FatMap map technology will power Strava already this year. Well, we should get the integration worked.
So the idea is that I get more more path, more maps. I mean, more. I want to go out.
Being able to visualize in 3D.
Okay.
And what FatMap's technology, what they've created is just a better way of exploring the outdoors with the map. And so it was built for that reason. Whereas Google and Mapbox largely are building to move cars and trucks around. FatMap had said, what if we're moving people around by their own power? So it's really we believe we can create now with the Strava data. We have over billions and billions of activities from all around the world. So there are over 100 million people on Strava. In the 13 years, we add about 1 to 2 million new people a month to the community. It grows quickly, and it shows you that people all around the world seek activity. Activity is like a common. What I you go back to something you said in the beginning about Strava's tapping into something that's part of who we are. We are. Ever since there's been civilization, there has been an interest in moving for moving's sake. The original Olympic Games, the ancient Olympic Games, was a celebration of movement. It was a celebration of what can our bodies do? What powers do we have that are not just about getting, the fields plowed and the harvest in. It's about celebrating that we have a body, that we can, anyone with a body can move the body. And so that's the part that I think Strava's tapping into. And now if we think about where we want Strava to go, we want to expand who it's for so that you can it's not started with cycling. We moved to run. Now there's over 45 different sports in the experience. Any way you want to move, Strava should be able to capture, present this back to you in a way that makes sense, and then go beyond movement to helping you with health and wellness beyond just the active phase, but sleep, stress, nutrition. These are aspects of your active, healthy life that you want to really be able to focus on, that Strava can be the center of that active life. That is the goal of where we're taking the experience in the future.
It's very interesting. And I believe because one problem after another, when I go, like if you take the maps, for example, when I go out cycling, I know Google Maps is not effective for many reasons.
Yeah.
But one of the main reasons is that you get to a point where you're in front of, a forest, and it tells you go straight on, right? And you're like, no, I'm not going to go straight on. There is no path, right? There is nothing. And actually, you need some maps, some people who've been there, some ways, places you can go around. What you say about sleep, what you say about, I mean, it's all of those things you endure, right? When you go more and more outside. Adventures, as you say, also, I believe, hiking. I mean, you're in a place, there are so many, it's not only mountains, because most of the time you think mountains. It's Paris, it's New York, it's Philadelphia, it's everywhere. You're here. Just where should I go if I want to go out and run or walk? And
what's it going to be like if I go there? Like wanting to know more about the experience before you go, so you can be sure it's the right thing for you. So you know before you go. So your point about Google would say go through the woods. Strava can tell you, well, here's how everyone else has already done it. They didn't go that way; they went this way, because we show you the heat, the sort of which route is more popular based on the billions of activities that we've collected over the years. That's the community telling you the answer, not
Strava, not the team.
It's the community of people who are out there with you. So that's, I think, the approach that the power of community is another aspect of what makes Strava different. Is that it's really based on that principle that you're connected with other people in this world. You're connected, even if you don't know them. They're making they're having to struggle through the same things you are. You can learn together what the right answer is, which is a route. It's a way to maintain your health. It's a way to maintain your wellness, your mental wellness. These are things you can learn from the community. You don't have to learn them just on your own.
The surprising thing again is that you started without a mobile app, right?
Yeah.
As you said earlier on. So the idea was I would get my Garmin, basically, or I think at the time
we really only worked with Garmin. Now we work with hundreds of different GPS devices.
Maybe I could come with my phone still. I mean, and get my data, or it was only Garmin
at the beginning. It was only Garmin. You had to plug it into your laptop or your desktop. But in 2012, we built the first mobile app. So
you had the software. You would plug Garmin. You had a Strava software that would bring in.
There was a piece of software application on your computer that would take the data out, send it to our servers. In the cloud, it would process the data and it would show the activity now on the website. It was only a website. Strava was a website for the first 3 years. Yeah,
and it's interesting because, as I said, I started with Runkeeper back in 2009, and you saw that from then. But
I think it was because we were really, we were not on the cutting edge of technology. We had the team we had was not a. There was some of the original people from Kana Software, Chris Donahue, Mark Shaw, two really wonderful human beings who had joined us as early employees of Kana. Now they came and joined us to help us start Strava. And Pelle Somansson is my nephew. He was on the team as well. He was the youngest, so maybe
from Sweden.
From Sweden, yeah. he was the youngest, but he wasn't a software engineer either. So. We saw mobile. We saw what was happening, but Runkeeper, Jason Jacobs, who started Runkeeper, got to know him. He's a wonderful, wonderful human being as well. He, I think, when he launched Runkeeper, the mobile app, he was one of the first 100 apps in the App Store. So mobile was in 2009, 2010. There wasn't a thing everyone was doing. You were kind of wondering, should we do it? Is that really going to be the thing that but the website is so good. The website it's such a big canvas to paint on. Now, the mobile screens were really small back then, and battery life was not so good, and the GPS was not so accurate. So we were wondering, is it really going to be a thing? Is it really important? We waited too long. I mean, honestly, I think when we launched our first mobile app I think we tried a version in 2011. It wasn't good, and so we had to rebuild it and launched again in 2012. But when we finally built something that was worth using, we realized, this is what people want. They don't want to go to a website. They want to see everything on their phone. And, by that point, there were many other apps already tracking, using mobile apps that were tracking workouts. So it was a very crowded space by then.
And still, it's true. I mean, for the hardcore user, which is, I think, an important part of your base.
Yeah.
Those devices, I mean, Garmin, Suunto, whatever they are so important still. I mean, it's part of their life, right? More and more. And back then, it wasn't connected to the mobile at all. So, I mean, you still have to get, maybe it's, I don't know if it's a good decision right now, but you see what I'm saying? Somehow you were the kind of, in my mind, and I think in a lot of people's mind, the kind of pros, like the hardcore sports people, kind of a runkeeper was for amateurs. I mean, somehow, which was okay for me. I'm an amateur.
I think there was something as well to that we were building for maybe a different audience. Some more water would be good. Thanks. We were building for someone who we probably oriented towards that they were trying to get better at what they were doing, cycling, running. Remember, we launched first in cycling, which was another choice we made. We said we're going to go focus on one sport, not because that was the only sport we did. We were actually runners much more than we were cyclists, but we thought we could prove that it could work with this audience and build something that they would say was really authentic to how they did their sport. And if it worked there, we could then expand to other sports. So by going an inch wide and a mile deep, we could really build an experience that was differentiated. But that brought also people who were performance oriented. They wanted to get better at riding their bike. They wanted to go faster up the hill. And Strava became a way to both motivate the training, but also then see the progress. You could see yourself getting faster on the leaderboards. You could see your time improving. So I think a lot of that DNA that came from performance early on is still with the company. And what we've realized though is that you can't just always keep going faster. You also have to think about feeding another part of your brain and body, which is how much enjoyment, how much joy you're getting out of it. If you're only trying to do something for the performance, eventually you will get burned out. You will get injured. You will get older, and it won't be possible anymore. And so, by 2015, in terms of the age of the company, it's halfway. 2015, 2016 is halfway in the journey so far. We realized that this idea of we're building for someone who's performance oriented needs to be complemented with we're also building for someone who's experience oriented. We have to think about this. It's not two different people. It could be the same person at different times in their life or different times in the year. But it can also be, some people just are concerned about going faster and being stronger. They just want to enjoy more the time that they're being active. And that's really where I think a lot of the focus needs still to be going forward, is to build for that person who celebrates movement, who wants to be healthy, who uses Strava to motivate daily activity, to be using it as a tool to help connect to a community that they feel they can belong to that community on Strava, but they're not there to run the fastest 10K that they can run. They're there to get the most enjoyment out of the time they spend being active.
The interesting thing also is that still after 13, 14 years, the trigger that made me go on Strava was
I want to hear this. What was it?
It was actually Garmin.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. And because I mean, one thing, I'm sorry, I'm going to say bad, I'm going to say shit about your competitors. Your competitor, Runkeeper, you can probably, it wouldn't be very a gentleman, but I'm so upset of how this app, but maybe some other too, didn't move like an inch. Like nothing happened on Runkeeper since they sold it to Asics. I think. Yeah. I mean, it's like exactly the same. I mean, I'm like, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah.
It's like 6 years, 7 years. I don't know, 8 maybe. And you're like, come on! Do something. I mean,
we saw all of our competitors get bought by the clothing and shoe brands. So Asics bought Runkeeper. Adidas bought Runtastic. Under Armour bought 3. They bought MyFitnessPal, Endomondo, and Map My Run, Map My Ride, the Map My companies. And so this was happening around us in 2013, 2014, 2015. But no one was ever calling us. We never got a single call.
My God.
And we were like, what's wrong with us?
You don't want to be that person.
But then we thought, we saw and we learned kind of the prices that were being paid. And it didn't seem like it was at all what we had built Strava for. The valuations that they were getting weren't at all what we thought was possible for Strava. Because we actually had built a very different
What was
business.
The valuations for those apps? I mean,
I think that if you look at it from a per user basis, it was $1 to $3 per user,
which is pretty good.
I mean, those companies were sort of 20, 30 million users at the time, so they were acquisitions in the $100 to $200 million range. Great outcomes, I think. I think, I don't know personally. I don't know if it was good or bad for the people who were building the company or the investors. But what we realized is they had been building a very different business. So we were building something where the goal was create value for the athlete, for the person who wanted to use the product, create value that they would pay for in the subscription. And so when we look at we were making a lot more money from our subscription than they were. They were doing things like advertising to make some money. They were doing some subscription, other things, but there really wasn't a lot of, like your point was that the app was a pretty basic experience, and they got bought by ASICS, and now ASICS put zero investment into making it better because it did what it needed to do, which was now they can show ads for their products in the experience. It was a marketing channel for those companies. It was a way to collect a bunch of potential customers and show them marketing. And we didn't build Strava for that. We built it for the person who was like us, who wanted to be active. We wanted to build something that they would use for the rest of their lives, we could serve them and they would be willing to pay for the experience because it was so good.
What a mistake. I mean, I think, I believe I think the way they bought those apps and the fact that they bought those apps was, brilliant. I at the time I was thinking, yeah, great. They're smart. When I listen to you, I think Nike or Adidas should buy Strava. You don't want to sell Strava, but maybe I don't know. But what I'm thinking is that the brand who will buy Strava, if they have a sportswear company, they would become the sport brand. The sport company.
Yeah.
But that means it's not only what you wear; it's how you behave.
Yeah.
It's the way you go out. It's the way you and it's just if it's Nike, if it's Adidas, if it's whoever.
So
it wouldn't make sense.
Here's another thing that maybe it's hard to see for people who use Strava, but Strava is already it's a network, it's a community, but it's also a platform. So those brands you just talked about, Nike, Adidas, ASICS, Reebok, Brooks, Garmin, Sunto, they're already our partners. They're already on the platform. They already reach the same end customer, but they do it via Strava.
Okay.
They do it as a partner on our platform where they can engage. Yes, they can do some brand advertising or motivating through our global challenges, but they can reach that end same customer, and they can build community too as part of the platform. And so we've always viewed that as part of what we're building. It's for the person who is the consumer, who is going to be moving through space and capturing their active life on Strava, but it's also for the brands and services and companies, big and small, that want to serve that same customer. Strava is a platform they can use to do it.
So you have a self-serve for small company.
Yeah.
I can come on Strava.
You can create a club on Strava.
Okay.
And that's a big area for investment for us going forward, is the group that you can create the sense of community or a group on Strava where you might be the coffee shop where everyone rides by, and you can have the ride and plan your ride with Strava. You can be a group of friends. You can be a big brand. And you can motivate people through the content and events you put on Strava.
So you don't have to have WhatsApp group anymore.
Replacing the WhatsApp and Slack and Facebook. If it's about an active life, you can do it using Strava.
Okay, it can be about the bikers in the 17th district in Paris, or it can be, okay,
right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Who's in like you go away in this town for the weekend, who's in town, or like each time you go there,
right.
or...
Right. And I think of it this way, which is the community, once again, the community has the answer. You want to know the best ride to do in Burgundy when you go? Yeah. The community that's there knows the answer. It can give you some suggestions, and then you can decide. Maybe we can help with helping you see what are the photos people have taken. Which routes would we recommend based on what we know about your rideability? Can
you meet some people so through Strava?
Absolutely.
I go to Le Touquet in a couple of days. Then I say who's going to run a half marathon.
You can search for a
Saturday.
You can search for a club in the city you're going to be in, and see what they might have standing group runs that they do, and you can use it to actually meet people in real life. There was an article in the Financial Times a couple of weeks ago about forget dating apps. Strava is the better dating app. You can actually see who's living the kind of lifestyle you want to join. Are they doing the same kind of sports you do, around the same pace?
Hopefully, my wife is not listening to that. she doesn't understand that I spend so much time on Strava. So maybe it's not Tinder, right?
No, it's all healthy. There are definitely a lot of privacy settings. We give you a lot of control over who sees what. You can make Strava
to my wife on my Strava. That's what you're saying. So what I was about to say is the reason I got back to Strava. Actually, I got to Strava. Sorry, not back. Is still Garmin. It's still the device. So my question here is the relationship you have with the device, the companies, hardware, because they are so important. You're looking for your phone.
It seems like the sound is...
It's a bit better. I was thinking that... it took me some time to get to Strava, but still at the end it was through a device. So I believe that actually. See, maybe it's your phone. Actually, it's weird. Can you put it each time we get the phone back around on the table? That's bizarre because we had so many iPhones on.
I can just go.
Oh yeah, I'll give you. I'll tell you about the time anyway.
Now it's off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
I think that's it.
Weird. The relationship you have with all of those hardware. Including Apple.
Apple and Google.
Because at the end. Even for Apple, you would be interesting to you don't want that, but to buy from Garmin, from Apple, from Google, probably. It's an interesting. You're a path to the activity, which is something very, very, very important, right?
Yeah. So that
a lot of questions.
Let me think about if you just play that out a bit. Strava is the one place where you can interact with people who are not on the same operating system that you are around your activity. So if you think about that, what we've created is the place where all of these operating systems can coexist. Samsung, Apple, Android. We've created the place where all the device manufacturers, Garmin, Suunto, can exist together, and it's the consumer. My philosophy, or the way I think about it, is we don't define our friendship relationships based on what we buy, what hardware we buy. You might have an Android, I have an iPhone, but we want to be friends. Unfortunately, the companies that make the devices don't want these devices to work very well together. It makes it harder for us to be connected because we're using different hardware. We built Strava so that you can be equally connected regardless of what device you're using, because we create the platform, again, that those device manufacturers can plug into with our open API. Anyone can develop into the Strava technology ecosystem.
Weird, it comes back. Does Garmin pay you each time of
no?
If I no, Because I mean, I don't know if you know, how could you? But it seems to me the way.
So Garmin actually recommended that you try Strava.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I believe it was kind of very natural.
Easy.
Yeah, much easier to go on Strava than Runkeeper. And so I started that way. Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, and we have to get your if you want to get your history of activities off of Runkeeper into Strava. I know that there's a service that makes it easy to do. So I'm sure we can find that for you.
I'll try to do that.
Yeah.
The thing about Strava now, we talk about the very beginning, and now we're where you're at, which is pretty impressive. Like the past 3 years have been like huge, big, completely.
Yeah.
I mean, you had the pandemia, right? That kind of helped, which is weird.
A lot of people were looking for motivation to be active and connection to other people, and Strava was a way to get it.
But prior to that, you've left. You're about to leave. We said that earlier on.
We're looking.
Role as a CEO, you might stay around, but you'll tell me what you would do. But you did that also before, which is kind of a
cycle.
But also quite incredible how this company grew, had several lives, and I don't know. It sounds like it's really out of all of the playbooks, right? I mean,
I wouldn't recommend having as many changes in leadership as we've had, but we had to figure out a way to get through some really hard things over the years, and so sometimes that meant between Mark and me, we changed who was CEO a couple of times. We had someone come in from outside for a period of time, and now again we're looking for a successor from outside, not from internal.
What?
I decided after 4 years back running the company that I think we can find someone who can run it better than I can. We're at a scale and size where the complexity is not the company it was when I ran it when I was CEO the first time. We've grown to over 400 people. We've through the acquisition as well as through hiring. The scale of revenues, the sort of the next chapters of growth are going to require, I think, the next generation of leadership to join the company. So we're looking for someone who has really strong leadership skills, really strong product sensibility. They can imagine the future of the Strava experience, and they want to will this experience into existence, and that they have some real connection and passion for what Strava can become. That they have a compelling vision for what the company can be. And I'm looking forward to being able to cheer that person on and help as a member of the board and see it firsthand. So it's like looking myself in the mirror and saying, if I want to really help Strava be successful, how can I do it? And I decided that the best way right now is to help find my successor. And then I can figure out what comes after. For me, I don't know yet.
What comes after you.
Yeah,
I was
I don't know
about
yet.
to say, plus you have to admit, you want to teach business in Princeton now, right?
No, it makes my hands, like I get sweaty palms when I think about going back into the classroom. I don't want to go teach again. But,
what part of, I'm just wondering, Mark and yourself, you're still shareholders, obviously.
Yeah.
What kind of part of the company you have the Series A, Series F?
Yeah,
it's like 10%?
Well, a lot less. So yeah, we don't disclose the actual numbers, but yeah, you get
like 20.
Together we're in that range. But that's really good that you bring this up. If I think about another aspect of the how to do it for anyone who's building a company, it's get used to the idea that in order to be successful, if you're on the path to raising capital, and that usually means raising several rounds, you want the capital that you raise now to get you to a place. Obviously, a higher valuation, but to get it to a milestone, get it to a place where you can show you've actually created more value. That's where the higher valuation comes from. You can prove or visibly show that there's something new that this capital created. If you're only raising capital to then spend it, but it's not getting you anywhere, you're going to get diluted out. There's not going to be much left for you. And so
sometimes nothing left for you. I mean, literally.
And so we always said, the the value, we're raising capital so we can create value. And if we do that and we need to raise more capital, now we're doing it at a higher valuation because we've created that value. It's that thing that we do. That's the part we add. We take the capital, we take what we're working on, and we create the value.
Understood.
And so you do have a smaller share, but it's more. But obviously now, if it's more valuable, in the Series F, the valuation was over $1.5 billion. You know,
$1.5. Okay.
Yeah. So we're very happy about the path. Very. You know, today when we're now looking ahead, we're profitable and growing for the last 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, the last 3 years we've been profitable and increasing the revenues. Sometimes very fast and sometimes a little slower, but so we're going to continue that path. And we want Strava to stay independent, continue to build for the person who wants to live an active life. And we think there are easily 1 billion people in the world who wake up every day wanting activity in their life, something to help them lead a be healthier and fitter. And we want Strava to be the center of that active life for them.
You don't want to IPO?
Well, IPO is a means to an end. It's not the end in itself. So I think it is the right path for the company at some point. But you know, there are some really important things we learned about taking Kana public. It's like, if you're not ready for it, if the company isn't generating dependable, repeatable results, it's actually very hard to be a public company. You then end up focusing on the wrong things just to satisfy maybe the short-sighted, short-run nature of the public markets. But when it's the right thing, it can really accelerate you. It can help you by being a public company. It can allow you to both maybe acquire other companies because you now have a public stock that the value of. It can help motivate the employee base. Now they have liquidity for their shares. So there are benefits that come, but there's a huge cost as well that comes from being a public company in terms of what you have to do internally, but also then the expectations you have to meet for the public markets.
So what are the metrics you're looking at? It's like the number of active users, the number of paid active users, the churn rate.
So our North Star metric is weekly active subscribers, the people who are paying us and using the product on a weekly basis.
Okay. And so these are the people you cherish.
Yeah, this is what we built for. We built Strava for the person, and I know you don't yet subscribe. We'll see if we can talk about.
What is the price of a subscription?
So in France, it's €59.99 a year, so €60 a year.
Yeah, I could go for that.
Yeah. So and what you get for it is it's 3 big areas. It's exploring the world around you with a lot of the map technology is a subscriber feature. It's progress over time. So showing you your own health and fitness and giving you that ability to understand and be able to maybe set some goals and decide, what it is you want for your active life 2, 3, 4 months from now. And the third one is a lot of the ways in which you're connecting to the community give you opportunities for more fun and enjoyment interacting with the other people, like the segment leaderboards, having group challenges with your friends to rack up the time being active each month. So these are the community-based features that are our subscription as well. So, but there's a free product. We think it's that's where we hear a lot. The free product is great. You're using the free product, and one of the things we focus on is trying to build ways to show the value of the subscription. So for people listening who are building subscription software companies, this is always, I think, the hardest thing is to decide what's free and what's paid. And one of the things that we really, the philosophy we use is, if it's something that's really focused on you, maybe call it the ego part, the sense of who am I? That's a lot of that stuff is on the paid side. And if it's focused on the community part, how do I interact with others? A lot of that's on the free side. So a lot, being able to follow others, see their activities, being able to join a club or a group, those are all parts of free. And then the progress over time and being able to plan a route and see it, the mapping part, the exploring the world. That's the paid side.
Interesting. I think it's very interesting because one of the philosophy you have, I believe, I feel is that you don't. kind of blame for being free, right?
No.
I mean, it's still. I mean, you could put some stuff like I don't know, advertising or stuff that would make me feel like okay, I'm gonna pay, right? Because I'm a hardcore user. Because I'm at some point you say, yeah, you've done more than 10 courses this month, so now you have to pay. Or I mean, I don't know, stuff like this. Still, there are some free apps, so you have to get there is some competition.
There's competition. There's competition, but the thing about Strava that's maybe also really different than some of the other apps that track a workout is the experience you get, whether you're free or paid, is the experience of seeing other people's activities. That is a big part of the experience. And when you follow others, you get motivation from seeing what they're doing to be active. And so if you think about it, the free user is providing value to the ecosystem. The free user isn't paying nothing. They're just paying in a different way. By contributing their activities, they are making it a better experience for everybody else.
True. Yeah.
And so we value the free user too. And that's different than other experiences. And so
you get some data from him.
Interesting. Exactly. It's data. It's the content that others can see in their feed. Think about the group ecosystem. If you go to a group and it's like, it's paid only, there may be 10 people in the group. If we could let some free people in too, maybe there's 30 people in the group, right? And now that's actually makes it richer for everybody, makes it a better experience that you have. You don't just exclude the free user.
Before I forget, would it be possible to have a promo code for my listeners? For the first, if they register?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have the answer, but I'm sure we can. I know we've done this kind of stuff in the past, so we can make sure before you go live here, we can get you.
Yeah, we'll send you an email.
Most of the time, great. I would love that.
Most of the time, the promo code is do it. It's but it's maybe a problem because you have some brands around that.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know. Whatever. We'll see. I'll put it in the description if we have something.
Okay. And we can.
Yeah, and get like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 euros per percent, something on the first year. I don't know.
We've done this before. I think it should be possible. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you came back before you're now.
You
came back.
Yeah. In 2019.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you had to leave for a very sad reason. Something you're going to probably tell me about, and after I want to understand what happened when you came back. Also, what are the changes? But you left for personal reason, and I told you I haven't lived the same thing, obviously, as you did, and the end is fortunate for me right now. But you're talking about balance. You have 4 kids, you said, and you left because your wife was sick, right? Is that it?
Yeah. So it was 2013, and I had been running Strava for almost 4 years at that point. From 2000 started. Mark was CEO for the first year. Then I took over in 2010, and in September of 2013, Anna had not been feeling well. She had breast cancer when she in 2004. For the first time, and had been treated. It came back in 2006. She was treated again, surgery and radiation, chemotherapy, and she was very young. She was in her 30s with breast cancer. It turns out she had the BRCA1 genetic mutation. That was something that was really early technology. Now it's well understood, and I think she would have been screened for it even before she presented the symptoms of having breast cancer. Now, now we know, we've checked, our children have been tested, and 2 of them carry the same genetic mutation, but now they know how to reduce the risk because they have the knowledge. But so 2006 was she was treated again and was in remission, cancer free. But by 2013, something wasn't right, and she was seeking, trying to understand why she wasn't feeling good, and it turned out she had metastatic cancer in her liver and bones, and it had been growing all those years, the 7 years in between, but just at a very slow rate. But now it's once it's metastatic, it's
too late.
It's not cure. It's very rare that you can truly cure it. I did. Mark took over as CEO then. I stayed involved as I became president of the company, but my job was to help support Mark. My job was we talked just about every day. I took on some projects, but I was able to then to get really support Anna and my kids in the last 3 years of her life. She passed away in February of 2017, so just over 6 years ago. I think that the experience there of what we went through, where Mark takes over, even though he had been involved, he was on the board. It was a big transition for a company at a very, I call it, like we were really trying to grow, and now we had to make this change, and people had to get to know Mark. He had to understand the team. He had to run the company his way. He was going to do it differently than I did. He was CEO until 2016. He decided that it was time to find someone else. So we did a search. We found someone from outside who had a really good set of experiences and took over in May of 2017. And things worked really well. We grew the community, and Mark and I stayed involved on the board. By 2019, the company wasn't doing very well. We were pretty diversified across a number of different things. We were in debt. We hadn't raised venture money. We had raised venture debt. And we decided that we would step back in. Mark and I came back in together. He as executive chair, me as CEO.
May I pose
by the end of 2019
here, because just to understand how you had almost all of your career from 2003 to 2016, was it, or when Anna passed away?
Yeah.
You had to create companies with 4 kids and all of this. I had this for 3 months, 4 months, which was kind of a heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Even for me, and it's much heavier for the person who for our wives in that situation. But how can you get the strength to go for the next project and on and on? And how did you decide all of these all together?
That's a good question. If I look back on it, I think some of it's a coping mechanism. There's so many things you can't control about cancer, and so and true, you can't control everything about starting a company or growing a company, but you feel more in control of that environment. But the two were not compatible. When Anna was diagnosed with metastatic cancer, I couldn't do a good job with either. By doing both, I had to choose. And to be honest, I needed help choosing. I needed the board and Mark to say, "Look, you can't do this. You have to step away from the company. We're not giving you a choice. You need to take care of your wife." And so I really appreciate that. Sometimes you need really the advisors around you are what are going to help you make the right choice. I think back now how there was no way I could have supported Anna and my kids and continue to run the company.
You were still on the payroll for those years?
Yeah, a different
role.
Yeah,
you said,
role.
And I'm asking that. It might sound a bit weird, but it's important.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that kind of and I think it's good for Strava to hear, and for people hearing this, it's kind of a support also. Or you were still active, as you said, but I think it's a good inspiration to think that, people in a company have their lives and good things and bad things happening, and their problems and I think sometimes in France, particularly, we're pretty good in protecting employees, and it costs a lot, but still at the end, you can live all together well.
Yeah.
I would have seen most of the time an American company as, sorry.
You got to go.
Michael, you got to go. You're not able to do that. So
and
goodbye, man. And like even having you back at some point as a CEO, I'm like, this is weird, or this is, I don't know. This is kind of
this is not traditional, not traditional at all. We started Strava with the philosophy that, we're going to build a different kind of company. I think that is when we started talking earlier about the influence of growing up, partly, I lived in Sweden when I was very young. My mother and sisters live there now. And the way that Sweden is organized as a society, I think you see a lot of that in the way that Strava is organized as a company. Now, in some ways, that's hard to maintain. It's more expensive. We provide really great benefits, health benefits. We have flexible time off, so people can take vacation when they need to. So, but even back then, it was, we thought of it as, that you need to take the time so you can support the other parts of your life. 3, 4, 5 weeks. In France and in Sweden, 5 weeks of vacation doesn't sound strange. That's
the minimum.
That's the minimum. But in the US, 2 weeks is, some people have 0, and so in the US, the presumption is if you can't do the job, someone else can. So either do the work or get, but we were trying to create something different, and we wanted it to be a place where we wanted Strava to be an environment where we would actually, by giving people a chance to balance everything, they could actually do better work. So we would be more productive in the time that they did give to the company. Now, in my personal case, this is where what Mark and I worked out, and because maybe this is special because we're the founders of the company, and we worked out where sometimes when Anna was doing well and we were not, it's an intense period of time, I could put 100%, I could be working full time. And then I could then compensate where when I needed to, I could go down to 50% or 25%. And then, the last few months I was not doing any work. I was really just caring for her. But, and then where stepping back into the company, this is now 2.5 years after she passed away. She died in February of 2017. And I'm not sure if I can, attribute. It's like I think Strava kind of saved me, pulled me out of a pit, gave me purpose again.
That's what I was about to say. Even sometime in the process, of what I felt, and I think I've shocked. I'm going to say something, quite personal, but my mother-in-law, because I was in a hospital room, my wife was kind of waking up, but she was completely drugged, and I mean, and I was in a Zoom meeting, and she came in the room, and she's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And it's kind of a loophole. It's kind of you and you need something to hang out. I mean, like just waiting. I was discreet, quiet, or mainly listening, not talking. But you need something to hang out to. I mean, and sometimes the company, the thing is that are you good for the company or not? If you just hang out, you mustn't be a what is
burden.
That? A burden. I was about to say burden. I wasn't saying. But so sometimes it's something also that brings you back to life, and sometimes you're ready for that. So I don't know.
And I didn't get it right. Just want to be brutally honest with you and with your listeners, is that on maybe 50% of the time, I would say I'm doing this for me, but I'm not seeing that I'm taking something away from Anna. Like that, where she actually needs me to be fully present, even if I'm just witnessing what she is going through. And then other times is like, no, if you don't find some way to take care of yourself, then you're not going to be any good to me. You need to get out for exercise. You need to do some work. You need to get out of the house. You can't just sit here and watch me as I fade away. I can't take that, right? So we found a lot of help through therapy to get through this period. I want to give a lot of credit to the idea that when you're training as an athlete, you can be helped by having a coach, right? Well, when you're going through anything hard in life, you can be helped by having a coach too, and especially a relationship which is stressed by someone being very sick and maybe going to die soon. Nobody can do a good job. No one is born with the skills to handle that well. So we benefited from having counseling that could get us to see how would we communicate about this very hard subject. How would Anna be able to say to me when she needs me and when she doesn't, when she wants me to take care of myself? How would I be able to say what I need in a way that I don't feel like I'm sneaking in the work because I need to do it. I need something that I have control over. I need something that I feel like I'm being productive in. So what I can say, this is where I want this to be something where we're doing it together instead of me taking it away from you. So I think that was the realization of what we needed to do to get through this time in our life was obviously better communication, but really honesty about the situation we were in. And that's where therapy really helped us get to that place of honesty with each other.
Thanks for sharing that. It's I think it's things I've touched a bit, and your place where should you be is always very hard to understand, I think. So you got back to Strava at some point. That must have been kind of weird.
Yeah.
And just I don't know. After 3-4 years, you're going away. So it's weird to think that. I mean, you I don't know. How do you know you're the right person to go there to get back?
I can tell you I wasn't. I mean, it was.
Well, it seems you were. I mean, you've done well still.
Well, I wasn't what I was expecting to do. I was. We were in a tough place as a company, and so we didn't. At that time, we said, well, we know a few things that we believe to be true. One is when we focus on building for our customer, the subscriber, good things can happen. When we step back in, we came back in with that in mind. It's like I knew what the job was. I knew, what I didn't know is how to get the team behind that. It was a very different company than the one I had run before. It was bigger. I didn't know most of the people. I knew some of them, but I was really new. I was someone new, even though I was a co-founder of the company and had been on the board. I was not a known entity to the people who worked. They didn't know who I was. And so I was pretty scared.
The value was still around. I think Davis and Mark were still around.
Yeah. Okay. Mark was not working. He was on the board. Davis Kitchell was there. Mark Shaw. Okay. Chris Donahue. And Mark had just left. Mark Shaw had just left before I came back in to run it again. But what when Mark and I said we're going to do this, we also had to do a layoff the first day. We had to let about 13% of the company go, and these were really good, talented individuals. And we, this is another aspect of the tech world, especially is it's pretty easy to, if you raise venture money or you have capital coming in, you can scale the team. But if you don't see the results in the business numbers, in the revenue, you may be out overhead, and you have to reduce the size of the company, or else you're going to go out of business. So
because the idea was to get to profitability,
as fast as possible. Okay. Yeah, we had to get to profitability. We were in debt, and there was no way we were going to be able to raise capital, given the growth rate of the business and the economics of their business. We needed to build more value in the subscription. And
what does mean as fast as possible? It's like
we said it has to be within 2 quarters. Within half a year, 6 months. Yeah. So the downsizing was part of that, but then also focusing nearly the entire company on the subscription business and building more things that people would be willing to pay for, explaining it better, and we really saw that pay off. In 2020, we we had a dramatic change in the trajectory of the business. At the same time that we also had more people coming to Strava because the pandemic started in February, and right away we started to see our growth rate of new users coming in increase, and that's the trajectory of the company changed dramatically between 2019 and 2021.
How do you call the rate of people if you compare the number of users and paid users or subscribers?
So
there's a name for that?
We think about it as the
conversion rate, is it?
The conversion rate, but the growth rate of the company, we define it as the growth rate of our active users. This weekly active subscriber is the thing we really care about. Back then, we were also tracking monthly active users, weekly active users, whether paid or subscribed. But basically, the idea is we were growing by about 1 million new users a month. And during the pandemic, that rate went up to 3 million at one point, but 2 to 3 million a month for about a year. And now it's come back to be between 1 and 2 million a month. And then out of that, some percent never really engage, and they don't become active. The ones who become active, some of them don't subscribe. So that's the funnel. That's how you go from top of funnel is the new user, then how many people actually engage and become active users, and then how many people subscribe, and that's the weekly active subscriber number.
And so 1 million a month, out of which can you say like 200?
Well, we don't give away all the conversion numbers, but it's gotten better over time.
What would be a good conversion? I mean, just to get an idea. Is it 15%, 5 or 20 or 30?
Yeah. Well, so a really, really good conversion funnel would, if you start with new users, if something like 10% of them convert to subscription,
like 100,000 a month.
Yeah. That's a really amazing conversion in a freemium model where we have a free product and a paid product. If you're some companies like think about Netflix as an example. They have only a paid product. You can use it for free for maybe a week, but then you have to pay. So in that case, you don't have this conversion. Doesn't make sense because everybody has to be a subscriber at the end. They're not a user. But in a freemium model like Spotify, Duolingo, Strava, that conversion from you have free users, you have some never engage, some engage, and then you have the subscribers at the bottom of the funnel. 10% is considered really, really good. And some of them are even better than that. I think Spotify releases their ratio is even better than that. Probably it's 20%, something along like that.
So that would mean a good number for you would be if you have 100,000 paid user a month.
Yeah,
you would be happy.
Yeah,
and that would be if you take the French more or less price would be like more than 500 million net income. I mean, out of tax, something like this.
Yeah.
Incremental. That's a good number.
Yeah.
But you have to take off the people who
churn out because you're adding people in, but you're also losing people who go back from being paid to being free. We call it churn. You call that churn.
Some people just go back from being paid to be free and still active.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Why?
Well, they maybe didn't find the value. They didn't, or their credit card failed, or there's a lot of reasons. But we see people go free to paid to free to paid to free to. We go back and forth. Sometimes maybe they're taking a break. They're not going to be as active for a while. They got injured. Life changed, and
I do that for some subscription, but you will understand why. It's for a Champions League game.
Season.
So the season when the season is over, you don't
pay.
Feel I should pay 35 euros for channels I don't watch, right?
Yeah.
But for Strava, I would feel like if I don't pay anymore, I would pay yearly. Do you have a monthly plan?
Yes, we do. Also, you could choose yearly or monthly.
Yearly it's cheaper, I believe.
Yeah, you get a pretty good discount. I think the monthly plan is, I think it's 13 euros a month, 12 euros a month, something like that.
What things you can share about those things you've changed in the past 3 years for people in the subscription business? What are some key learnings you've had?
Yeah, you always be building value in the subscription. We're adding new things all the time. The example of we acquired FatMap because we can build a better experience for exploring the world around you with their technology, and that's going to be a lot of that's going to be part of what you're paying for is getting the best maps for the outdoors, the functionality of those maps. So always be building more value into the subscription over time. That should be your focus as a subscription business, is building more value for the subscribers. Don't do what Runkeeper did. The A6 did with Runkeeper. Never invest anymore. You have to keep adding value
and let them know.
Yeah, and then the second thing I was going to say is really explain it. People, you launch a new feature and you think, oh, everyone sees it. Now everyone's going to know. Yeah. Most people don't see it. They didn't see that something's new in the experience. They didn't read your email. And certainly all the people coming in, if there's 1 million new people coming every month, they're not realizing that this is available to them either. They didn't get the message. So you should really focus on is like education. We think everything is obvious, that it's new, or that this is something you can see as behind the paywall. People are not spending all their time thinking about Strava every day, like we do it when we work at the company. You have to explain yourself. And I don't think we're doing a particularly good job on that either. I think we can do better on explaining ourselves. That's really very important, is that you're communicating with your customer, explaining yourself, explaining why you're building what you're building. So people feel that they belong to a community on Strava. We should be welcoming them and telling them and educating them on what we're doing for them. That's an important thing.
Are you a tough CEO?
Probably. I've got one of our employees, Glenn Newman. Love Glenn. He calls me Coach K. And so there's two basketball coaches in college sports. One's like a really nice guy, and one's a really tough guy. And Coach K is the nice guy. So I think I'm a nice guy. I'm not a tough CEO. So again, goes back to, one of my philosophies, and this is like, I realized this, and that I can put a name to it because I read a book by Matthieu Barzun. I believe that, so you have a pyramid structure for some companies, all the power's at the top, but unfortunately all the information's at the bottom. I don't think that's a very effective way to run something, but a lot of companies are run that way. Power at the top and decisions come down. And then the people at the bottom say, what the fuck? This doesn't make any sense. You don't know anything. And then that gets back up. Okay, we make a different decision, right? It's like information goes up and down, but all the power's at the top. That's a pyramid. I instead think about a constellation structure where the decision-making and the power is distributed in the system. So a lot of people, information exists at all levels of this constellation. But I try to give away the power. My power comes from empowering other people who actually have more information than I do to do the right thing. Now that can work, but it also requires a lot of trust. It requires people to really know what their job is and know what they're responsible for. And so that also has some challenges. And I think as we've grown, as we've increased the size of the company from 180 when I stepped back in 2019 to now it's 420, it's become more challenging for me for this constellation system. Again, give credit to Matthieu Barzun for the way in which he describes this in his book. It's called the power of giving away power. But it's a beautiful model, I think, for organizing systems that you can get really fast and really great outcomes if you give people the chance to make the decisions with the information they have, that they have the power to act on the information they have. And now it just requires maybe more coordination. So, yeah.
Would you have a book? I think it's very, I was thinking about ourselves here in Cause of Austria, and I think it's a good inspiration. I think we're quite good at this, but sometimes we still have some top-down. Sometimes, like right now, it's not a top-down decision, but right now with AI, I'm just pushing hard. Like, guys, you have to be on this. Like, all of you guys. Like, there is no other option. And I think some of them are like, fuck off. Just leave us alone, right? But I have to do that. I mean, there is no other option. Actually,
I think that's probably where I am. In the last couple of months, is realizing there's some things you really can't just wait to see if they happen. You have to be really clear. But even in the constellation model, there's a value in the leader could be, in my case, the CEO of a company. The responsibility of the CEO is to really be very clear about what decisions the CEO is going to still make. I don't give away all the power, but so that's where finding, for example, you mentioned it as like you want your company to not miss the boat on this technology, and you're going to make sure that everyone understands this is an expectation that you have. Being clear that that's actually really helpful for people. They now know that's a constraint. They now know, okay, this is what Matthieu says, and if I want to work here, I better do it. And he doesn't tell me a whole lot of other things, so I'm like, he doesn't tell me every day.
And actually, I won't tell them how and what, and I will tell them I want you to subscribe and try like at least once a day, a couple of times a day, be creative and do more. But you have to do that. You have to be on that, because any day soon someone will be able to say, I want this website like this and that to an AI, and it will work. And so what are we going to do within all that, right? What is going to be our purpose? What are we going to do better? And that's something we have to masterize.
Yeah.
Would you have, Michael, a book to recommend? Something I should read? Well, everybody should read.
So that one I just mentioned, I think is a really good one.
All right.
It tells it's told in a beautiful way, stories throughout history of this concept of constellation.
All right.
Systems.
We'll go there. It's
a really, really good book. And he's an entrepreneur. Been part of building some tech companies. Also worked in politics, where under the Obama administration. So Matthieu Barzin, really, really recommend it.
I'll read it. I'll buy it.
There's another book. I think there's like all sorts of business books are kind of useless. You pick them up and they could have written a 5-page book instead. They wrote
most of the time
200-page book. It feels like that's. So I go for the books that really tell stories of how people actually built something or lived their life. But I picked up another one I really want to recommend. Which is called Be Water, My Friend. It's written by Bruce Lee's daughter. Bruce Lee was the martial arts actor.
Of course, yeah.
And he died very young. But he had developed a very rich philosophy of how to live his life. And so Shannon Lee, Lee, is her last name. She wrote a book about her father's philosophy, and it's a beautiful, beautiful description. A lot of it's like self-help therapy kind of thing, but the idea of be water is the weakest thing. If you think about it, you can hit it, you can shove it, but it always comes back. It always finds a way, because not through force and power, but it's the most powerful thing because it is. Of the way it occupies whatever form it gets put in, it follows gravity. It can be the thing the wind drives to destroy things. It has the power to break to tear down mountains through erosion. So like the idea of being water as a philosophy for how we live our lives, something I really think a lot about, and it goes along with how he put that into practice in his life.
It is actually the one thing I remember about. Sorry about being cliche, but The Art of War, Sun Tzu, that I've read a long time ago, is that water is, it goes around problems, and it's strong, and it lasts, and it evaporates, come back.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, we follow you on LinkedIn. Are you active? Yeah.
Okay. LinkedIn. Okay. Yeah. I'm on Strava also.
Strava, obviously. Yeah.
You can follow me on Strava. Yeah. I use Strava as a way to communicate with my friends about what I'm doing, where they can see where I am. They can see what I'm up to. But LinkedIn is good. Instagram as well, not as much because I use Strava instead. So.
If you had the opportunity to whisper to Michael something right when you leave this boat house for the last time, and you tell you something, what would you tell you? What would you say?
Yeah. Well, I go to, it's, you don't have to focus so much, Michael, on being liked. you're too worried that people won't like you, and that changes who you actually show up as.
I like that.
And so be yourself and count on that the people who are going to matter to you will find you a wonderful human being just the way you are. Be yourself.
I love this. Thank you. Okay, before I leave you and before everybody gets excited, tell me one last thing. I liked the way you ended up with Ken. Is it Ken on the Diary of a CEO?
Yeah.
With that say we talked about earlier on.
Yeah. You are what you do every day.
Yeah. I kind of said something like that recently. I said, and it was actually about sports. Like, I mean, the marathon or an Ironman. I mean, it's cool, but I mean, it's just like one day. It's just a race, right? But to get there, you have to do a lot of things, right?
That's right. And so you are what you do every day is a statement about it's
Stephen
like
Bartlett. Sorry, I was said.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. But what you have a similar expression. Is like you are the average of the people you spend time with. Is similar, I think, in that you might be able to once in a while meet a Nobel Prize laureate or an Olympic champion. But it's the people that you're around every day that actually are much bigger influence on your life. And so in my case, I'm talking about it's the things that you do every day. Call it the habits or the practices, the things that you actually make time for on a daily basis that are so much more important to who you become. I do, for example, and one way I put this into practice is in 2015 when I was so focused on what do I do to take care of Anna, I wasn't taking care of myself, and I realized I was in so much pain in my body, and I decided, okay, today I try to do some push-ups in the morning. I got up and I could do 10, 5. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to do it again. Now, every morning, so that was the beginning of the practice. Every morning I take 20, 30 minutes to do yoga, mobility, strength training. I do it every morning, every day. And sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but every day. And even that little bit, 20, 30 minutes, it changed everything about my ability. The pain went away. I became much more able to just get out and go for a run when I had the time, instead of feeling, I can't do it because it hurts too much. And I realized that it was what I did every day that made me the body, gave me the body that I have. And then I think about, okay, so how do I spend my time thinking? What am I thinking about every day? And that makes a difference. And so that cooking, I love to cook. And so you are what you eat every day. So it's not when the really fancy restaurant that you go to once a month is not going to be the thing that makes up who you are. So what kind of food do you want to eat every day? Like what's that? That's the average, that concept of that experience of what you are every day is what makes you who you are.
You are who you follow every day on different social networks. And
exactly.
You won't decide to waste or not time or life or on things that are not worth it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Are you going to run in Berlin?
Yeah, maybe Berlin, definitely in Chamonix.
Definitely in Chamonix.
But Berlin is going to be, I arrive, we have a team dinner. Tomorrow I have to leave pretty early. So I think it's going to have to wait till Chamonix.
Okay. Okay. It's pretty nice place to run.
Yeah, it's good. Both.
Flat.
I have a good life.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. You have to take that flight. I don't know if you're going to go by a motorbike or a cab.
They've decided.
They've decided.
It's Kat Parkinson is the person in charge of.
Thank you, Kat, for all of these. Thanks a lot. You can come in and I'll stop this. We're just thanking you, Kat. So at the end, and everyone, and Clémence, and all of you guys, we're done. Oh, you took off your shoes. Okay.
I took off my shoes.
All right. Bye, guys. See you. Bravo, vous avez écouté cet épisode de Génération Do It Yourself jusqu'au bout. Merci de le partager à 2 personnes autour de vous, d'inscrire de force vos amis au podcast sur leur smartphone et de mettre une note 5 étoiles avec un gentil commentaire, c'est ce qui me fait ressortir dans les classements. Aussi, si vous me laissez votre email sur gdiy.fr, je vous enverrai l'épisode de la semaine ainsi que 2-3 bons plans. Pour finir, n'oubliez pas que si vous avez des besoins en accompagnement tech et créatif, toute l'équipe de Cosa Vostra va vous bichonner comme il se doit si vous nous écrivez sur gdiy@cosavostra.com. Je suis Matthieu Stefani et je vous embrasse.